My name is Sarah Bohn. I'm an economist at the Public Policy Institute of California. In this video, I'll be discussing poverty in our state. I'll present some basic facts on the official measures of poverty and discuss who is poor in California. You may have heard that poverty rates have risen sharply during the Great Recession. The most recent data we have for looking at poverty is for the year 2010. And after being stable between about the mid-1990s to mid-2000s, poverty in California spiked to over 16% by 2010. That means that about 1 out of every 6 or 7 Californians is poor. How is poverty measured? Federal agencies have developed a yardstick based on families' income before tax, and non-cash benefits are excluded, like food stamps or housing subsidies. This yardstick level of income is used to determine a family's eligibility for various assistance programs. In 2010, the poverty level of income was about $22,000, and that's for a family of 4, composed of 2 adults and 2 children. Note that this level doesn't vary geographically, and because California has a higher cost of living than most states, if we adjust for that, we tend to have an even higher poverty rate than other states. Over the past 2 decades, California has generally had a higher poverty rate than in the rest of the country. Right before the recession, California's poverty rate had narrowed to about the same rate as in the rest of the country. However, during this recession, our poverty rate jumped faster, edging to a slightly higher level than in the rest of the country. How does this compare to previous recessions? Well, in 1993, at the peak of the last very severe recession, poverty in California was at 18%. We're not quite that high yet, but we're close, and it's not clear when this will begin to turn around. The Great Recession technically ended in June 2009, but as you know, unemployment has remained stubbornly high, and poverty has continued to increase. How has this poverty reached different people in our state? I'll discuss this based on 3 simple demographic dimensions: age, ethnicity, and where you live. First, age. There are striking differences across age groups in California. About 1 out of every 4 or 5 children in the state is poor as of 2010. This rate is much higher than the rate among working adults and over twice as high as among the elderly. It's important to note that while the rate of poverty among immigrant children is greater than among American-born children in California, by far and away, most poor children in our state are US-born. In fact, over 90% of poor children in California are in a family headed by a US-born adult. Next, ethnic dimensions. Again, the differences are dramatic. Latinos, African Americans, and Native Americans in California have a much higher rate of poverty than other ethnic groups. Over 20% of Latinos and African Americans are poor. That's about twice the rate as among Asians and whites in our state. However, across all ethnic groups, poverty rose during the Great Recession. Last, I'll discuss some dimensions of poverty across our regions. San Francisco Bay Area counties have generally the lowest rates of poverty in the state. San Mateo County had the lowest in 2010 at only 7%. But the picture in the Central Valley is very different. Many of the counties there have poverty rates exceeding 20%. Fresno, that had the highest rate in 2010, had about 1 in 4 people in poverty. In terms of number rather than percentages, more poor people live in Los Angeles County than any other county in the state. And that's largely because Los Angeles is the most populous county in our state. The image of poverty may be that poor people are not working, but the facts tell a different story. In fact, the majority of poor people in California are in families where at least 1 adult is working. Specifically, 40% of poor individuals in California are in families where an adult is working full-time. And an additional 25% of poor people in California are in families where someone is working at least part-time. Here's what that adds up to. Over 65% of poor people in California are in working families. And that is the picture of poverty in California today. Thank you for listening.